Hello lovelies, welcome back to The Tangent. We are in episode 13. So I recently participated in the Cape Town Marathon. We did the 42 kilometer, so the full. And I want to use this episode to take you on the inside track of my doing a running event as an adaptive assisted wheelchair athlete. So it was a pretty chaotic day for us, which I think is maybe expected at this point, but what makes it exciting is that you never really know where or how the chaos is going to unfold. So that's always a good time. I'm being a little bit cryptic with this, and I know that you would probably just want me to get into the story, so let's get into it. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quirkiest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I've been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is The Tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. Okay, so as mornings go, it was pretty wild. I think we woke up really early. I think we were up before 4 a.m., which is kind of standard. I am not a morning person, so I can get up. I'm just not going to be enthusiastic about it for at least 40 minutes. So just give me a second to become enthused about the fact that I'm awake. We were running a little bit late, and we left home a little late, which is okay. We were fine. We were still chilled about it, still on track for everything to work out, and we made a decision with the route to the start that led to us getting stuck in traffic. It was not chill traffic that moves, so we were stuck there for quite some time. We thought it would be fine and everything would start moving, and there was a snail of a driver ahead of us, which upset me for no real reason, because you can't go anywhere anyway. But I think emotions are just high at the beginning of a race day, and I'm often the one that is just just chill, but not always. But the traffic was not moving in any way, and we saw other runners getting out of cars all over the place and having their last minute morning snack and running to get to the start on time. And I at that point thought that they were being a bit dramatic, but when we looked at the time and we had 25-ish minutes to get there before our start time at 6:17, we became the people who were getting out of their cars and running to the start. So my mum pulled over into the shoulder, which is not really that much extra space when you consider the wheelchair, but we were making plans. So a random runner and his friend came up to the car, and they were like, "Are you okay?" Because clearly there's a scenario and logistics going on with us. They offered to help, and my mom asked, because of the space issue, my mom asked if they would mind getting me out of the car. So I heard all of this happening. I was sitting in the front seat, and I'm pretty used to it at this point, so I was on board with this plan. And so he comes to the front and like undoes my seatbelt and made sure that I didn't fall out the car, and lifted me and carried me to my wheelchair that was at the back, and he put me in the chair. Then I asked him what his name was, and his name was Joel, and he was wonderful. So thank you, Joel, for being super helpful. I think it's funny that like I only found out his name after like I was in my wheelchair and safe. But you know, things happen, and he was great. So that was fun. And so they left. We got going to run to the start. Felt everything was good. It was really like more intense of a warm up than we had planned. And while we were running in the first like 15 meters or something, like the brakes weren't working properly, so we took them off, and we were like, we'll fix it when we get to the start. It's okay when we're in our pen and safe. Also though, we realized that the front wheel was loose, so we had to fix that right away, because that guy was not reliably attached to the wheelchair. Oh, and my wheelchair is called Bruce. All of my chairs that I use for active things have names. So my running jogger is named Bruce. So if you hear me talking about Bruce, it's not a person, it's a chair. So keep that in mind, guys. So Bruce was pretty cooperative, but like up until certain points. He does have a personality, so we have to take that into consideration when we navigate races. We arrived in our pen with 45 seconds to spare. So we were a bit stressed, but we were ready. And we got to the pen, and we kind of stopped and gathered ourselves and put the brake on. And my pilot runner for this race was Chantel. She's awesome. She's been in my life for a good couple of years now. We've done a good number of races together, and she is a beast of a human being and a phenomenal athlete. So I love running with her. It always is a vibe. So we were at the start, like we're doing the breaks, and we know what we're doing, but people are super helpful. So a whole group of guys helped with getting the brakes back on. What I find really interesting is that when I have a fully women team, when there are no men in my team, people offer to help less than when we have men in the team. And I don't know why that is. I have a couple ideas about why I think people don't offer to help for a women team. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So if you have thoughts on that, like put them down in the comments, and let's start a conversation about that, because super interesting observation to me. So we do 10 seconds of visualizing and mindfulness and getting in the zone and stuff, and then the race started. And the beginning of the race is always like such chaos and stress, and it's always like super congested and stressful. I think that's more intense as a wheelchair athlete because we are lower. People are tall around us, regardless of how tall you sit in the wheelchair. So the mass of human existence around you, I tend to get a little claustrophobic. And especially with the big races, when we don't really start at the front, we start with everybody else. And that's fine for us. It's just something to be aware of, that like we do experience the start differently to non-disabled athletes. But we did have a fellow wheelchair athlete and Katie sports runner at the start there with us. Marco was there. We met him and his partner Shukri at like the first kilometer in, and that was beautiful. I think we really have a different experience when you are with other wheelchair athletes, for like personal enjoyment and also for the advocacy. I think people look at us differently when it's not just one wheelchair runner on the road. And this year at the Cape Town Marathon, I think there was a noticeable presence of wheelchair adaptive, like assisted, and also other disabilities like represented in the race. And I think that's amazing. It was not just the elites wheelchairs that were there, it was also in the general like field, and I think that's awesome, showing the progress of the work that we've put into the advocacy of getting people onto the road. And there were 19,000 people running that day. That's massive. 19,000 people. It felt like 19,000 people. Let me just say that. I'm very excited that we got to participate in that race. It's a good one. And we met some really rad humans on the road as well, and they stayed with us throughout the entire race. And I think sometimes it's cool to have your designated team and like you have your pilot and your support runner, but sometimes you gotta make room for like the universe to bring cool people into your day. The universe delivered for us with that one. We had such epic humans who were so wonderful and helpful and encouraging, and really actually kept us going in parts of the race. So what we ultimately wanted to do with Cape Town Marathon this year was to qualify for the Comrades and Two Oceans. To qualify for the Comrades, you have to run a full marathon, 42.2 kilometers in 4 hours and 50 minutes. That requirement is no different for wheelchair athletes. We have to qualify just as any other runner would. And this particular thing is not where the disability accommodations live. Like we get other ones, but the time requirements to qualify are the same. There are a few things that got in the way of us qualifying, so I'm going to really quickly just share some of the things that happened over this day, keeping in mind that we were originally aiming for 4 hours 50. To start off with, it was super windy. Less windy than we expected when we were stuck in the traffic, but it was windy nonetheless, which makes it a lot harder and slower in the wheelchairs, and like especially when it's in your face, it kills your soul a little bit. So that made things hard for the beginning of the day, but we were fine. We were like, this is okay, we just need to pick up speed when it's not as windy, and like when it's behind us will be better. When we turn, it'll be okay. That was the attitude for a little bit, and then at like 15-ish kilometers, I think, my tire got a puncture, and we realized that the tube was dead. And we did not have any spares. I think this is the point where I always believe that everything will be fine. I don't have that whole be prepared for anything when it comes to Bruce. I'm very much prepared for anything when it comes to my own body and my disability things. I never really remember to transfer that planning and like apocalyptic resolution mindset. I don't apply that to my equipment ever. I don't know why. I need to work on that. But we didn't have any equipment. We decided that we tried to pump it up, and we met a rad, wonderful man who was a cyclist named Dan, who also tried to help us out, but there was nothing to be done. We decided to just keep going and get to the end. And in that moment, the goal shifted to just enjoying the day and seeing what happens and appreciating all the little cute things that happen along the way instead of focusing on time. Because we can work on qualifying in another race. So we spent a good few kilometers figuring out what we could do next in terms of like which marathons are coming up and what we can use to qualify for combats and oceans. And we landed on the Winelands Marathon. And that's happening at the end of November. So maybe there'll be a race update episode on that also. I really like that race. I've done it a good few times, and I have cried in that race every time I've done it for very different reasons. And it's a very different race to Cape Town Marathon. Cape Town Marathon is known to be fast and flat. The Winelands Marathon, I think 3 studies, is not fast and flat. But for us as wheelchair athletes, it is a really good one because fast and flat does not work as an approach or like a methodology for a wheelchair athlete. Flat does not equal fast. Flat equals consistent effort and no breaks because you have to work all the time. And it's easier when you have an undulating route so that you can have different levels of energy that you're like using at like throughout the race. So we prefer the ones that have a little bit more uphills and downhills, and because they just offer a little bit more reprieve than the fast and flat options. Still great, but not easy. The second kind of challenge that we had in the day, this is where we get to the TMI section of the episode. So my bathroom strategy when running marathons is having an indwelling catheter. I know many people have different strategies. This is mine. So I use an indwelling catheter. This is a win for me in terms of my general competitiveness and also just being a good decision for me with physical well-being because I can hydrate as much as I want because it flows into a bag and we can empty it when it's full and it takes like a minute. So that's a win-win to me. But that's when it's working. And I knew pretty early on that it was not working properly. And at that point, we were still on target to qualify. So I decided that we could deal with it later if it turned into a bigger issue. I'm very grateful that my scenario, it's not as challenging when it stops working because it just finds other ways. I also had issues with my right hip spasming pretty much the whole time, and that made it really hard to sit properly and use my legs the way that I need to. Yes, people, I use my legs when we run. I just use them differently to how on legs people use legs. How are you supposed to say that? Like able-bodied, non-disabled people. Cool. So we're on the same page, right? So I used my legs. I couldn't use them how I needed to, and so I was constantly leaning over to the right, and like when the tube left the wheelchair, like that just got worse. A funny thing as well, I sort of realized after an embarrassing amount of time, is that I think that my backrest of the chair wasn't clicked in properly, and it was positioned like more forward than usual, so I couldn't sit fully upright. If this is actually what happened, it would have been a good explanation for the whole scenario, and that's pretty frustrating to me because that would have been one really easy thing to fix. But we live and learn. Guys, this was not even halfway into the race, and we already had like 3 crises. And generally, we allow ourselves 1 moment per team member per 42 kilometers. Right? So, I don't know what number we're on at this point, but here we go. So, right before halfway, I started to feel a little weird, and like we needed to figure that out. Basically, I felt sick, and this is always a process of elimination. So we start at like the most likely option. So my starting point here was I thought that I had like a sugar low problem. So I asked Chantel to pass me some of the jelly babies that I had in my bag, and we were in the process of opening the bag, and like it wouldn't open, and nobody was panicking. We were just trying to be efficient, right? Because time matters in these situations, not in terms of like my health or my well-being, but because we're trying to get to the end of this race in a certain amount of time. So the less time you take doing other things, the better. So we're trying to open the thing, and it eventually opened. In the process of opening the bag, we also realized that I was probably overheating. So we opened my jacket, and like after a while I felt better. So that's awesome. One thing that I have learned as an adaptive athlete is that your body has this incredible ability to bounce back and rally for you. Like when you're trying to do something, it can do that. It can bounce back for you when you're solving the right problem. When you figure out what it is and it's actually what's going on, and you solve that issue, your body can figure it out. That's a really important realization, I feel. We just gotta find the right problem and match it with the right solution, and then everything's fine. We're always finding new problems, so we have to find new solutions, but that's also a part of the experience and the journey, and we get better at it as we do more events. So apart from all of these chaotic moments, it was a beautiful day, and I had a really good time. And I love running, and generally I love that people get confused that I do long distance things. I'm an endurance athlete, so I do the ultras and the full marathons in the day, like the 12-hour things. I like them better. They're more suited to how my body works. So we do the thing, we do the 42, and we finished in 6 hours 40 minutes, which is very cool considering the day. I think we made some good decisions where we needed to, like getting out of the car when we did was really a good decision. Smart choices. Because also when we were running, the race started and we were running, and I think we're like 2 kilometers in, and we saw my mom still in the traffic, like 25 meters from where she was when we got out the car. So solid winning there. But we finished in 6:40. Every runner has like a post-race like ritual, right? So like when we get to like 5Ks to go, you're just visualizing and dreaming about that post-race pepper steak pie for Chantel. For me, it's like Steers chips covered in like Thousand Island sauce. Guys, get that to me as soon as possible after anything over 40 kilometers. Or actually ever. Like anytime I'm doing any active thing, just bring the Steers hand cut chips. Please. I will love you forever. And then you go home and you take a 3-hour nap. That is my general strategy. I did get the Steers, but I didn't get the nap. So the next day I was broken. And I think my body worked in ways that it doesn't usually work. And so it took me a little longer than it normally does to stabilize and get back to normal existing body feelings. So that was all that. And I would like to emphasize here that I really do like running. I really do think it's an incredible thing to do. Even though this story is not making it seem like I like it, and like with all the crises, running, especially long distances, I think gives us opportunities to connect with others and to learn about yourself and your capacity to do hard things and understand your determination, and we get to make unforgettable memories, often memories that we would like to forget and block out, but sometimes like they arrive and they're there, and we are badass for doing the things that we do. And I remember reading Bruce Fordyce's book, and in there he says, so he speaks about comrades. In it he said something like, you don't ever start and finish the race the same person. And he was speaking about comrades specifically, but I think that's true for any race that you do, because you grow throughout that experience and you learn things and you can teach things to others, and it's a collective experience that we're having and sharing, and that's what's beautiful to me about that, is that we all have the same goal to get to the end, even if everybody arrives at the start line differently and for a different reason. So if you have the option or the inkling or like a drunken decision to do a marathon, I think you should really listen to that and just give it a go. Because either way, you'll learn and you'll grow. And I think that's kind of the whole point. So thank you for listening to my crazy crisis review of the Cape Town Marathon. I hope if you did it, you had a beautiful day. I hope if you were a supporter, that you screamed your lungs out at everybody that ran past. And I really hope that we can have more adaptive athletes on the road running with us. So I'm going to end the episode there, and I'll see you in the next one.